To really understand Chinese Buddhism, one must first know the background of Buddhism and its struggle to survive in China in the earlier years. Before the persecution of Buddhism in China in 845, there were 10 main schools of Buddhist practice, 6 of which were Indian Buddhism, 2 of the remaining 10 were scholastic in their main focus, and the 2 remaining Chan and Jingtu schools were the most popular in the country. For the Chan school, its main focus was on meditation, thanks to Bodhidharma, an Indian meditation master. After Bodhidharma passed the school on to his disciple, many other disciples inherited the original teachings. However, problems arose when deciding the sixth patriarch of the Chan school. When the decision was made to elect Hu Neng as the sixth leader of the school, the focus shifted to Mahayana and emphasized emptiness and the suddenness of the Enlightenment experience. Not long after this shift in focus, the Chan school began to concentrate on a more Chinese lifestyle that veered away from Indian Buddhism. This new shift would cause the Chan school to divide into 5 separate sects during the Tang dynasty, and only 2 of these would survive and eventually merge into one during the Ming dynasty. Overall, the Chan school focused on meditation, compassion, and bringing the mind to a direct experience of reality, all of which would be passed on by teachings from masters to disciples. On the other hand, the Jingtu school, also known as the Pure Land school, was under the control of Tan Luan, a disciple of Hu Yan, and focused on Amita Buddha's vow to cause all faithful beings to be reborn in his paradise, focusing religious practice on repetition of the phrase Nianfo, literally meaning homage to Amita Buddha. This school's Buddhist teachings were much simpler than that of other Buddhist schools during the time period, which was a main factor in its survival of the Buddhist persecution in 845. However, some may argue that the Jingtu school teaches an easier, fast-track version of Buddhism that veers away from the religion's origin and original teachings. Regardless of this opinion, even today the Jingtu school thrives in Japan, where it is one of the most popular Buddhist schools. However, before the persecution of Buddhism by Confucian and Taoist authorities, there were more sophisticated schools of Buddhism throughout China that focused on philosophical ideas. These earlier schools were divided into multiple sects that consisted of groups of individuals that believed in a set of particular ideas that they believed to be the best representation of the truth. What this really means is that these Buddhist schools were trying to find different ways to explain the ancient Buddhist texts from India that had been translated, and why they contradicted one another. 6 of these 10 Buddhist schools in China seem to have been transplanted directly from India, and it was these 6, Jusei, Lu, Zhenyan, Sanlun, Chengshi, and Fasheng, that would not survive the Buddhist prosecution. The Jusei school was founded in the 6th century and focused on the Sanskrit text Abhidharmakosa, which all in all made it a Chinese version of the more traditional Indian Sarvastidhan school. Overall, the Jusei school emphasized that the elemental foundations of reality, the dharmas, were real and represented a realistic view of the Buddhist universe. The next of the so-called more sophisticated schools of Buddhism in China is the Chengxi school. Chengxi practice was mainly based on the Indian text known as Sati Siddhi Sastra, which was translated into Chinese. This text focused on the emptiness of dharmas and eventually became associated with the more Chinese Madhyamika tradition. In contrast, one of the more complex and strict schools of Chinese Buddhism was Lu. The Lu school came to be during the Tang dynasty and focused its studies on the Vinaya traditions in opposition to the more philosophical issues that other schools focused on at the time. One Vinaya in particular had 250 rules and guidelines for monks alone and 348 rules for nuns. This emphasis on Vinaya suggests that the Lu school required focus to be on both monastic discipline as well as doctrinal teachings within its practice of Chinese Buddhism. A few other Chinese Buddhist schools were also considered more complex and scholastic, some of which directed their focus on more tantric teachings, like the Zen Han school. However, only the Jingtu and Chan schools would survive after the persecution of Buddhism, due to their popularity over the others and less traditional approach to Buddhism. Chan and Jingtu schools were different in some ways, however they both shared the notion that they were less traditional Buddhist and more so a New Age version of Buddhism. While the Pure Land Jingtu traditions focus on an easy way path that is faster and less strict in its guidelines, it will reside with the less fortunate of the population. The Chan Zen sect's way of suddenness will win popularity among monks and wanderers. With this New Age version of Buddhism, if you will, comes the issue of determining who we really are within the changing world around us. Typically, Buddhism focuses on finding one's self or the true you. However, in the Jingtu school, there is a theme of evading the more traditional Buddhist ways. In my opinion, the digital world and concepts of avatars would fit right into Jingtu's version of Buddhism. This is because of their laid back style of practice and focus on all things fast and easy, meaning that Jingtu Buddhism most likely would not have a problem with the notion of a digital self. I feel that Jingtu Buddhism is so far removed from the traditional forms of Buddhism and so evolved that the lack of self removed from all other worldly things and the internet world would not be seen as such a negative aspect and may even be welcomed into the religion. On the other hand, the more strict Chan school may have a different opinion. Because the Chan Zen school has a more traditional approach to Buddhism, I feel that they would not be welcoming to the modern idea of a digital self. Chan Buddhism has a focus on Zen and is more tied to the idea of no self, as well as other traditional Buddhist ideas, than the Jingtu school. And it is because of this that I think they would view the digital self and the digital world more negatively. More so, the Chan way of Buddhism also has a strong focus on attaining emptiness, which has no place for a digital self, and I strongly believe that the digital world would be looked down upon by the Chan school.